So, a lot has happened since I woke up in this universe, eh? I guess this is a sort of diary entry. I first opened my eyes in this universe without any memories. When I woke up, Derpy was standing over me. She took care of me until I could remember who I was. I reunited with the TARDIS and took Derpy on as my companion. It became obvious quickly that she had deeper feelings for me, but I ignored it in favor of our friendship. I fell in love with a bush because of a love potion she got hold of. Thank goodness it wasn't her. At one point, we ended up on a planet of machines where we found an AI that wanted to experiment on us. He called himself Neo-Surgeon after copying me. Copying me made him very much alive, and I almost destroyed him before realizing this. We taught him to value life, and I installed him into my sonic screwdriver to let him explore the universe. And of course, he goes and mucks things up by experimenting, resulting in Dinky and Sparkler being created from Derpy and possibly me. Derpy and I had a few encounters with changelings, which led to us finding a changeling who copied me and thought he was me. Everyone just loves copying me, don't they? When he found us, he realized he wasn't the Doctor and asked us to save the corrupted hive. I let the Queen feed on all my love of the universe, turning her and her hive back to their true selves. But I lost my ability to love in the process. I was investigating disappearances of races and planets in the timeline. This led me to the Caves of Truth, where Discord dwelled, showing me a terrible truth about myself that shattered my entire being. I still can't bring myself to go into detail about it because I'm terrified. This truth made me want to give up adventures and helping others, and Derpy didn't agree with me. I lashed out at her, and she lashed back by abandoning me. That's where many of you found me. After a point where I was alone and saying to hell with the universe, I dove headfirst into sex and drinking to fill the emptiness I felt. At some point, the questions I got began provoking my rage towards Derpy. I took it out on her by hurting her to teach the audience, I suppose, a lesson to not bother me about her. I let her go after that. The anger got the best of me again from prying questions. Once more, I took it out on Derpy, more violently this time, before I ditched her. Had an unpleasant encounter with Octavia where I crashed into her place. Even though I met Twilight Sparkle and bonded with her, like an idiot I tried to woo Octavia to much humiliation and failure. So I focused more on Twilight, and I grew to really care about her. She was a light in the darkness for me. Let's see. Fooled around, yelled at Dinky and Sparkler, ran into Poison Joke, which let's not even talk about that. After recovering from that, I encountered Patience, my ex-wife, for the first time here. And I ran from her. Oh, the winks. Didn't always have those either. My regenerative hormones were acting up and caused them to appear. After sticking to myself for a while, I decided it was time to learn how to fly, as it seemed like my wings had grown to fit my body. I learned how to fly from an alternate Rainbow Dash. I was going to celebrate with Twilight, but when I found her, she had cut herself deeply in a suicide attempt, which had been prompted by the Master. She survived, thank the stars. The Master had teamed up with Inky Pie and further antagonized me, trying to goad me to fighting. But when I wouldn't give, he beat me down and kicked me out. My hearts were getting louder and louder in my head. I tried to drown them out with more drinking, and in my drunken state, I forced open the heart of the TARDIS. She possessed an hourglass to create a pony avatar for herself, and cared for me like a nanny. I decided to call her Ananta. It finally hit me that all of the sex felt pointless, and I decided to give it up as it wasn't doing me any favors. No matter how many times I tried, I never could find relief. Not even with Twilight. The Master wormed his way into the mind of a mare I had let get close, which was the final straw. I went after the Master with the gun, but I missed the bastard. He was also with Octavia for some reason, which distracted me and threw me off my aim. Spending more quality time with Twilight and Ponyville was calming, until it came to my attention that things were also wrong in this timeline. I was informed of Sugar Cube Corner's bloody history as Slaughter Cube Corner, where Pinky went insane and murdered multiple ponies. I learned all of Twilight's friends were corrupted, dead, or missing. I would have investigated more, but Patience found me and demanded I leave. I visited a corrupted Rarity's universe to let off some steam, and discovered that her universe was layered and bleeding into mine, causing events of her timeline to happen here. It seemed to be like that for multiple corrupted universes, taking aspects of them and applying them to Twilight's friends. After that, I tried to avoid getting involved because it was getting far too complex. I drunkenly opened a temporary dimensional rift, which caused the one and only Jack Harkness to fall through. I was elated. Finally, someone good from the humanoid universe that I could spend time with. We reconnected, and I wound up in the wrong dimension when trying to show off to him. And there we found a bleeding filly, Scootaloo, who had tried to run away with her newborn. The baby needed a caretaker that could be trusted, and I suggested Twilight, who was more than happy to take him in while things got sorted out. I think for a while, I was more myself. I felt more clear-headed. I even got it in my head that I should try to check in on Sparkler and Dinky. Foolish. Utterly asinine. Dinky was rightfully angry with me, and I couldn't explain myself. Then, she showed up. Derpy. I went at her, but I was suddenly pummeled with rocks and bricks by Dinky. Her magic was even powerful enough to throw me hard. I think she was just about ready to kill me before her mother stopped her. I promptly left after that, just hoping we'd never have another encounter. I hate what she makes me do. While letting Jack help me process things, the TARDIS had an intense interference that triggered the cloister bell. I fought something that was pulling her, and I was hit hard with resurfacing memories of losing Amy and Rory, horrifically and violently in the journey to this dimension. Distractions. Right. I gave myself distractions. We landed in a dimension that was home to an obnoxious punster, and I got upset with Jack for wandering too far away. I was scared of losing him, but in doing that, I made him feel trapped, and we started having arguments. Jack wanted to go back home, and he wanted to take me with him, and that just couldn't happen. To make up for the arguments, I took us to the Nimbus Resort and Casino. That's where everything went wrong. That rift I opened before also let out a group of Daleks, which invaded and started slaughtering everyone there. I was in a panic. I was scared. I tried to run. Jack tried to stop me, and I pushed him right into a Dalek's laser, and I just left him there. I did go back for him. I did. We witnessed the Master decimating the Daleks, and I took Jack and ran from that too. Jack was different after that. He threatened me with a gun and demanded I take us back to the human dimension. But when he was distracted, I pulled out my own gun and shot him. I threw him out while shooting him again, and I suppose that's when the Master recruited him to Torchwood. Since then, he's been having me tracked. Fell off the deep end, binge drinking and neglecting my hygiene, doing nothing. Ananta cleaned me up, got rid of the alcohol, and made sure I got the right supportive questions and comments to keep me going. I tried to study what was going on with me, which revealed another entity inside of me calling himself Hyde, a corruption of myself. Less important stuff happened. I came to the conclusion that the Oscars were essentially my companions, which was nice enough to convince me to investigate further into the altered timeline. Equestria was at war with the Diamond Dogs, and Twilight was expected to help as a princess, but couldn't because of what happened to her friends. Ponyville was in ruins, where Twilight clung to it for her few remaining friends. I realized then that the Twilight I became close to wasn't meant to exist. She was part of the altered timeline, and if I fixed it, she'd be gone. And we'd never have that connection again, because her giving up the throne was what led us to have something in common. I was searching for the trigger for the timeline corruption, so I traveled into the past to observe Pinky. Octavia found me. She was interested in me after I had insulted her, I think. Strange woman. Pinky kidnapped us both to torture us, showing she was already corrupted. We were rescued by the guard before she could do any real harm, but she had me drugged out of my mind, and in my disoriented state, I took Octavia with me onto the TARDIS. Octavia demanded compensation for all the trouble I'd caused her, so I tried to take her somewhere nice, but ended up landing in the future city of Venice. A future wrecked by discord where only 10% of the pony population remained, and all the princesses were long dead, Twilight included. I tried to ditch Octavia, but she ended up schmoozing with a rich scientist who was luring her into his experiments. Meanwhile, I was trying to sneak around because his drones were after me. Neosurgeon made himself known again, and was useful in finding and stopping the secret Alicorn Magitech versions of Cybermen. My worst self convinced a worker to sacrifice himself to do it, using Neo to supercharge him. Then Bloody Jack shows up with one of his lackeys, so of course I had to grab Octavia and run again. And she still wasn't satisfied. She seduced me with kinky sex, had me take her on thrill after thrill. She stole something from an important historical figure, kept pushing me for more and more until I snapped and lashed out at her. But she actually got excited by that, and it snapped me out of it enough to have the sense to force her out of the TARDIS and out of my life. Anyways, after more investigations, I was brought back to the mirror pool. It revealed to me that the real Pinky and a clone swapped places, so that it was the clone that went on a murder spree. Poor Twilight. I had to tell her, and then ask her if she wanted to remain in this timeline or return to her old timeline without her memories. As I was leaving Twilight to think about it, Patience, or Minuet, found me and insisted on joining me to keep me from causing trouble, and to help me. She was fittingly patient with me, but never let me step out of line. Twilight decided she wanted the timeline fixed, but not until she could help me. She and Minuet worked together to cure me of the curse using a memory spell, and I finally felt like myself for a long time. There was still some of the curse remaining inside me, but I could finally function more like myself. In my recovery, I tried a few times to write letters to those I had hurt, but it was proving difficult for me to write anything. I might try again, honestly. What have I got to lose besides paper? Anyways, Minuet and I went to Neosurgeon's planet so they could combine their memories of me, which seemed to help fight the curse further. I wasn't fully cured yet, so I continued to focus on recovery before investigating again. Minuet and I went back to the mirror pool when it was first formed to see when Discord influenced it, but this was a mistake, as it led Discord right into the pool to infect it. He must have wormed into my head too, because once I learned Minuet had been seeing the Master romantically, I succumbed to the curse in a full-blown relapse and murdered her. Do I even really deserve to be saved anymore? I couldn't cope. I broke an altar's hourglass. I was ready to kill myself. But that's when the Master burst in and beat me down, tore off my wings, and threw them out with the hourglass. Then he took me onto his TARDIS, where I was kept in his Zero Room for a long time, before his TARDIS finally made contact with mine. I think it was going pretty well for a time. Until he revealed he had influenced many things in my life, from Minuets, to Jack, to Discord, to Derpy, the Changelings, and who knows what else. I attacked him, and that left me on my TARDIS with D, his TARDIS's avatar, to look after me. Meanwhile, the Master was going to try to figure out how to solve all of this. Twilight was in danger, and I made a deal with D that I wouldn't ask for any more favors after going to help Twilight. And then there was the Valiard. Likely a meta-crisis for my wings and Octavia, which means he's just as, if not more insane than she was. He killed her, but showed that he at least seems to care what happens to Twilight, because he let me take her away to safety. And now, I'm just here, waiting, doing what I can to pass the time, and hoping that everything will be okay. It's hard putting everything into someone else's hands, but at the same time, it's what I want the most right now, I think. I just want to be left alone while someone else takes care of things for once. Am I scared? Completely. But I need to accept that I've done all I can do at this point. Anyway, I guess I'd best get to writing those letters. Maybe I'll have better luck this time. I don't know if this journal log really helped much, but it was the least I could do, so yeah.